Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex, and my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo, coming off a big win over the Philadelphia Eagles. I gotta say, every win over Philly just feels different. It hits different, feels good this Monday to really wake up and know that we won a football game, and especially one against one of our most hated rivals. Despite our offense trying to sputter out there, but I'll tell you what. The game plan was different for Freddie Kitchens. It was quite obvious. The play calling was a little bit more aggressive, but they didn't get overly risky with the way they called the plays. They were more downfield attempts, a little bit more risk. But we want to kind of take a look at what he brought to this team that was a little bit different that we noticed from the game, but also a little bit of the Dave Gettleman rumors. There's some rumors going around that he may retire and whatnot. I know Anthony has some thoughts about that as well. Before we dive into all this good stuff, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's a Victory Monday, and not only is it a Victory Monday, it's a Victory Monday in which the Giants beat the Eagles. As you all know, if you've been listening to us for a while, there's nothing I hate more than the Philadelphia Eagles and additionally their fans. So anytime the Giants beat Philly, I'm kind of over the moon for the next week or so. And so I'm really excited about this one. This was a huge win for the Giants. I think the culture of this win, the impact on the Giants fandom and the fandom's culture was pretty huge. This is a win for the Giants where they're beating a divisional opponent and the one that's kind of gotten the best of them many, many times over the past few years. It does feel like a step in the right direction, like a dawn of a new era, like there's new beginnings coming. So I'm hoping that is what this is. This isn't just a fluke win for the Giants. Hopefully, this is a step in the right direction towards the Giants becoming a competitive team within their division and moving forward as a team that can win candidly against their divisional rivals. But one of the main things about going on this new horizon, dawning on this new horizon, going on the right path is going to be the general manager. What is that situation going to look like? So I think when we're talking about this win yesterday and then the future of the team, they're connected. And for the future of this team, the general manager position is going to be a serious talking point and a very important decision for the ownership to decide on by year's end. Sounds like Dave Gettleman is on his way out. I know a lot of fans are going to be really happy to hear that. So I'm definitely one of those fans, but it's going to be really interesting to see what the Giants do about that, who they hire, where they go from here, and if that relates to the offensive coordinator position as well. Freddie Kitchens, maybe over these next few weeks, maybe he'll win himself a job. I don't know. But it's going to be really interesting to see how this happens from now on, from here to the end of the season. I'm thinking long term. I'm thinking for the future. How is each game going to impact this upcoming offseason and the following seasons because of it? So very interesting stuff. And again, really happy to get a big W against the Eagles.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about Gettleman first and foremost, because this is kind of coming up. The Giants 4-7. They're still a long shot to make the postseason. I mean, they'd have to go on a tremendous run the rest of the year. They have some really, really talented teams coming up. And Darnay Holmes was just reportedly kind of coined injured. He went to the hospital at halftime during yesterday's game against Philly because on his interception return, a big 350-pound lineman landed on him, and I think he may have cracked some ribs or bruised some ribs or something, so he was having trouble breathing, so they brought him to the hospital. So that's another annoying loss for the Giants. Hopefully he's okay. Big fan of Darnay Holmes. They do have rookie Aaron Robinson, who actually played pretty well. I think he let up like one reception for a couple yards. So he really came in and played well in his absence, had some good coverage plays. Also, Jalen Reagor luckily dropped a couple of passes. So that definitely helped him out a bit. But I will say, Dave Gettleman in his tenure, he's going to be 71 next year, right? 71 years old, definitely stuck in some old ways. It seems like the power dynamic has been shifting. We know that Chris Mara has power. We know that Joe Judge has power. We know that Dave Gettleman has power. And it seems like all of them together are really confusing, right? They make a lot of decisions or, draft selections that don't make a lot of sense. They make some that do make sense. But I'll tell you what, the first round and second round picks the past 2 years have been decent, right? Azeez Ojulari, I think that's going to be if not a home run pick, it's going to be a nice steal at the 50th overall, and you got some extra value out of it. So I think that was a good selection. Andrew Thomas is proving to be a bookend left tackle when healthy. The Giants desperately need that, especially if they want to turn over the quarterback position at some point or stick with Daniel Jones, whatever it might be. Having a bookend left tackle is essential. So that's another really good thing that I guess Dave Gettleman did before his departure. Another one that's standing out now, Xavier McKinney. Xavier McKinney looks like an absolute stud. I don't know if you guys didn't watch the game. If you watched the game yesterday, He finished with 8 total tackles, interception. He almost had another one. He came down from the free safety spot to stop a screen for a tackle, a loss of tackle. It was just unbelievable to see his range, his game speed, his instincts, and his reaction timing all clicking at once. His past 3 weeks have been incredible. He was the highest graded safety of any safety this week per PFF. Anthony, how exciting is it to see Xavier McKinney taking this step forward? And Dave Gettleman, he's had some good selections, but it's the middle rounds, it's the offensive line specifically, aside from Andrew Thomas, in the mid rounds that have really plagued him and why he's going to eventually be fired or allowed to retire.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about Dave Gettleman, you guys know I'm not a fan, but there are some good selections that he's made. I think that Xavier McKinney is arguably his best one. To get a talent like Xavier in the second round, Xavier McKinney is a bona fide superstar in the making. I always thought he would be. I made that film breakdown before he even played a snap for the Giants. I said Xavier McKinney will be a star for the Giants. I was completely right, and it really wasn't that hard to see. I did the film breakdown. I presented to you all why he'll be a star, and now you're seeing all the things that I mentioned take place in the NFL. It just took him some time to get used to the speed of the game and really put it all together. I mean, it was an easy eval. You know, everyone knew he was going to be a good safety in the NFL. He was projected as a first-round pick. He fell to the second round due to positional value and other reasons, but the Giants had the opportunity to draft him, and thank God that they did. It was an absolute steal in the second round of last year's draft, and now we're looking at this kid in his second year of the NFL career, and we're saying that this guy looks like he can be an elite long-term safety. So great move there by Dave Gettleman. Absolutely. That was a great selection. But really, just more importantly, this is exciting because with the type of defense that the Giants run, it's very important to have good members of their secondary, especially when their pass rush is so bad. Xavier McKinney, James Bradbury, Adoree Jackson, these guys in the secondary are carrying this defense, and the defense is carrying this team. Right? So they're kind of carrying the team in a way. You know, the secondary is carrying the team. So when we have a really talented player like Xavier McKinney, it is huge for the Giants. You look at them offensively, terrible offensive line. Defensively, linebacker core is terrible. Zero pass rush for the most part all season long. But what has been constant, we've gotten consistently good play out of our secondary members, and Xavier McKinney has gotten better and better each and every single week, and he is turning into a Pro Bowl level all-pro caliber player, and I think it's super exciting. He's definitely one of my favorite players on the Giants, and long-term, I think he's going to have a very successful career with Big Blue.
Now, when you're looking at Dave Gettleman, though, what do you think is the biggest proponent of him being fired? Is it the offensive line?
Yeah, the offensive line is a major factor. Obviously, that was his number one promise. He's promised he was going to fix the offensive line when he was hired. He has not done so. He was hired in 2018. He went out and signed Nate Solder. That was his idea of fixing it. Didn't work. 2020, they get Andrew Thomas and Matt Parrott. The coaching staff refuses to play Matt Parrott despite the fact that Nate Solder is so terrible. So we don't even know if he found the solution on the offensive line there. He went and got Shane Lemieux. Lemieux was terrible, and then he got injured. Nick Gates seemed like a decent find, injured. So he has had some bad breaks with injuries, but also he just has not done enough. He has not found enough talent on this offensive line, and that is one of the most damning things. And another thing is, in his press conference, he said you have to establish the run and stop the run. The Giants cannot stop the run. Yes, dominant defensive victory by our secondary yesterday, but we allowed over 200 yards on the ground. So run defense is poor. Very, very poor. The Giants have not been able to stop the run all year long, and they have not been able to establish the run either. Let's talk about the offense once again with Dave Gettleman. He goes out there, he spends a bunch of money on all these playmakers. It hasn't amounted to anything. You know, you can blame that on the coaching staff or whatever, but also with Dave Gettleman, positional value. That's always been the discussion. The fact that he allocates so many resources to the defensive line, a lot of resources to the running back position. I mean, he spent so much money on the running back position in his tenure. You think about Saquon Barkley being a second overall pick and the contract that garners. And then you also think about the Jonathan Stewart contract, the Devontae Booker contract, drafting another running back in the sixth round this past year with Gary Brightwell. He's obsessed with the running back position, and the running back position is the most, by far, expendable position in the NFL for the starting playmaking positions. So Dave Gettleman and the positional value, he just doesn't seem to understand it. And if he does understand it, he doesn't seem to care about it or value it. But if you look around at the best teams in the NFL, they care about it. And that's why they're winning games. You look at the Chiefs, you look at the Bucks. The Bucks don't have a superstar running back. They have Leonard Fournette, who was washed up from the Jags. He was cut, and then they signed him, and now he's playing well again because any running back on a cheap contract can play well behind a good offensive line and a good play caller. The Giants haven't had a good offensive line, and they haven't had a good play caller, so therefore Saquon Barkley has struggled to find success. But had Dave Gettleman set this situation up better, we could have had a superstar running back find success, but we also could have had any ordinary running back like a Devontae Booker find success if the Giants set their team up the right way with a good offensive line, good play caller, and good playmakers around the running back position. The running back position dependent on so many other factors. The defensive line position also dependent on other factors. This is the problem with Dave Gettleman and the positional value. I mean, first round pick, third round pick, second round pick, all that on this defensive line, and it really hasn't amounted to much. They still can't stop the run. All this on the running back position hasn't amounted to much. Saquon Barkley does not look like the player he was in his rookie season. It's been a really, really poor allocation of assets by Dave Gettleman throughout his tenure. So what's the most damning thing? What's the number one reason he needs to go? Yeah, the offensive line for sure, but also the lack of awareness for positional value. He doesn't seem to emphasize it nearly enough, and it has come back to haunt the Giants on numerous occasions.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, when you're looking at, Dave Gettleman's tenure as history, it's the offensive line, right? The lack of. I mean, he spent resources, right? He spent picks, he spent money. It just was on bad players. It was just straight up on bad players that didn't fit our scheme, didn't fit our talent. The turnover coaches. I mean, it's just back to back to back to back negative things. So at this point, I think maybe he hit on a couple draft picks, but it's not enough, right? The foundation of the team is weak. The depth is weak at many spots. And I think that's another testament to the third round picks have been an absolute abomination. O'Shane Ximines, Lorenzo Carter is wildly inconsistent. BJ Hill's not even on the team anymore. It's just these mid-round picks have been useless. And, Ellerson Smith, he has done nothing this year. I think he's like 5 snaps this year. Aaron Robinson had a decent game yesterday. Still haven't seen enough from him. There's a lot of guys that are just not making an impact. Tay Crowder should not be starting on this team, in my opinion.
And you know what I'll say? Like, these mid-round picks are pretty useless because he doesn't hit on them. But additionally, the counter argument to that, if you can't hit on mid-round picks, you should trade them for better players. Trade them for players. The players he's traded for have not exactly been hits either. Billy Price has not been good. Matt Skura has not been good. Like, even Ben Bredesen was not that good, and he's injured. Like, even the mid-round picks that we're saying, he can't draft in the middle rounds, so just trade your picks away. He's not even making good trades with those picks. So it's really just been roster building, top to bottom failure from Dave Gettleman.
That's exactly right. Just top to bottom failure, but ultimately he is probably going to end up retiring after this year. I doubt the Giants actually fire him before the season is over. It's totally possible, since we just saw what happened with Jason Garrett, totally possible they fire him if they lose a couple more games, but likelihood is that they'll let him just retire after the season. He's going to be 71 years old, dude's a dinosaur, let him go, let him walk into the sunset. This tail between his legs. Just this is the end of the Dave Gettleman era. Now it comes down to who is going to replace him. We're going to do some videos. I know Anthony has a plan to do a series of different candidates the Giants could be looking at. So that'll be really fun to get some in-depth information into what these guys potentially could offer, what they've done for teams in the past. But I do want to talk about the offense and what it showed that was a bit different compared to Jason Garrett's version of the strategy and the scheme that he presented. Now, the play calls are very familiar, right? You can see that the designs of the plays are mostly familiar because it is Jason Garrett's playbook, essentially. There's a couple of different plays sprinkled in there, but ultimately it seemed to be Jason Garrett's playbook, but the play calls, the flow, and the way that the players were used and the reads may have changed. I think that was the biggest difference for me. But when I saw what Freddie Kitchens was doing, now 13 points, nothing to write home about, right? You're talking about another bad offensive game. But I'll tell you this, the flow in what Freddie Kitchens did was what really stood out to me. When the Giants had the lead, he ran the football. He wasted time off the clock. He had a couple of nice drives. There was also a couple of really ugly drives where it was second and 20 and they ran a halfback draw. Like I'd rather them throw the ball and try and do something positive. I liked how they tried to maintain possession in the second half with the lead and really try to give their defense better field position and not back themselves up into a bad spot. Now, I know Riley Dixon had a terrible punt in the fourth quarter, almost lost us the game because he gave it to them at like the 50-yard line, 40-yard line, and he ran it back to. But ultimately, I thought that the play calling was more downfield it definitely had more throws, 15 plus yards beyond the sticks. I know Kenny Galladay had more than one reception. That was a big standout for me. I think he had 3 receptions for 50 yards. He paced the team in receiving yards, so that was good to see. Your wide receiver one was at the top of the receiving list. Now we didn't have as many yards as I would like. We only had about 70 rushing yards. Saquon Barkley had a 32-yard scamper, but otherwise had, I think, 12 yards on 8 carries, just not efficient on the ground. The Giants are just not a good team because of their offensive line, right? It really boils down to that. As long as the offensive line is bad, it doesn't matter who the coordinator is. They're going to be limited to doing things at a very basic level. The run blocking is bad. The power gap scheme that they run, the offensive linemen simply don't get to the second level. They don't have enough strength and power to push, to move the line of scrimmage and, allow your running back to have a bit of time. There was multiple occasions where Nate Solder got absolutely blasted by Fletcher Cox off the edge. Just so bad. Like, I posted videos throughout the game. It was awful, disgusting. Andrew Thomas had a pretty good game. He had one holding call, which was disappointing. I know it put them out of field goal range, but otherwise he had a good game, only let up one hurry. Billy Price probably had his best game of the season. He wasn't an absolute liability this game. He was not great or good by any means. His best game of the season is still absolute dog shit. So that tells you a little bit about how good he is. Matt Skura, bad game. Will Hernandez, not a great game. I'll tell you what, Andrew Thomas is the only one that stood out to me as having an even decent game in pass protection. So I think that overall our offensive line is still trash. Daniel Jones, I think he was 7 for 8 or 6 for 8 with on throws where he was under pressure. So that was a really good statistic for him. He was completing a lot of passes while under pressure. He had that one throw to Myarick, the tight end, that practice squad tight end, where he threw across his body, picked up a first down. That was really nice to see. Of course, Myarick had the touchdown as well in the red zone. It was nice to see that the Giants had a red zone touchdown in Freddie Kitchens' first game calling the plays. We know how many red zone touchdowns the Giants had previously in a year and a half. They had 44, which is just abysmal. They need to have a lot more than that. So seeing Freddie Kitchens get one of them in his first game, definitely a better sign. Hopefully this is a kind of a foundational thing where they can grow off this game. They said, okay, this is what we want to do. This is the strategy. Daniel Jones looked a lot more comfortable, in my opinion. He was taking risks. He had a bit more leeway. They had a couple of quarterback draws. I love the quarterback draw plays. By the way, it really keeps defenses on their toes. It opens up the running game. It opens up the play action. It opens up the deep passing game. It keeps defenses, trying to figure out who's getting the ball. The wishbone, really big fan of the wishbone where I had Gary Brightwell, Elijah Penny, and Saquon Barkley in the backfield. Who's going to get that ball? You have a lead blocker there. It really creates some confusion, really trying to mask. It's all basically the entire scheme and strategy is built around masking how bad the offensive line is right now. That's ultimately what's happening, Anthony. So after watching this game, what do you think about the play calling, the strategy that Freddie Kitchens put out? Do you think it was a little bit different, a little bit better? Personally, despite us not scoring that many points, I liked the flow of the game a lot better compared to Jason Garrett. Hopefully they can build off of it and not stall.
Yeah, I definitely thought this was a different looking offense. It wasn't that much different. The results were pretty much the same. Giants didn't score that many points. They were, it wasn't explosive by any means like we want it to be. Not that many vertical deep shots. But Freddie Kitchens, that is, did do a better job getting certain playmakers involved. I mean, 17 touches for Saquon, 5 targets in the receiving game. I like that. I like that Kenny Galladay got quite a few targets. Sure, he only had 3 receptions, but he had some red zone shots that were thrown up to him. He had some targets, some plays designed for him. They did a good job getting him on that one slant route. He breaks that tackle. He's taking that thing to the house. So good ideas there, and that's really what we're looking for. And so in an offensive coordinator's first game, I'm looking for good ideas. And another good idea that I really like, utilization of the quarterback's legs. He did a really good job allowing Daniel Jones to run a lot of designed runs, but also I think they must have coached it up a little bit differently. Daniel Jones was taking off and scrambling quite a bit, and he was doing it decisively and at good moments. So I really liked that as well, that aspect of it. You mentioned that, Alex. Daniel Jones looked more comfortable in this game. I actually totally believe that and agree with that. He did look more comfortable, and I think it had a lot to do with the tempo and maybe the new play calling system. I think that they might be trying something different out. We saw them with the play call wristband in practice. There might be some new system that they're going through that makes it easier communication for Freddie Kitchens to Daniel Jones to the rest of the offense. It seems like they were just really efficient up to the line of scrimmage and figuring things out. I think they only burned 1 timeout due to clock management issues. So really, for the most part, I thought that it was good ideas. And that's what we're looking for. Again, I'm just looking for good ideas from Freddie Kitchens. This was his first game as the OC here. Let's let him build on this, see what he can do. Hopefully they start to open up the playbook, get a little bit more aggressive. If you look at it historically, Freddie Kitchens is an aggressive play caller. He does like to call shots downfield. He does have a lot of vertical passing concepts in his playbook. And to that point, I did see a lot less curl routes, right? I saw a lot less 10-yard run up and then turn around routes from Freddie Kitchens' offense yesterday. Saw a lot more, slants and dagger concepts. I saw a few of those. He was actually trying to push some receivers downfield at times. So, there's good ideas, and that's all I want to see. Good ideas. Let's see him continue to build for the rest of the year and hopefully end the season on a positive note offensively. That's going to be tough to do considering the injuries and how bad the first half and change of the season was offensively for the Giants. But if Freddie Kitchens can start to turn things around and things on a positive note, I'll be totally impressed and interested to see what they decide to do with Freddie Kitchens and where he might fall onto the staff next season.
Yeah, I mean, look, this offense wasn't good. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this offense played at an astronomically high level compared to where Jason Garrett left it. So I want to see progress. I thought the flow of the game, the comfort level of Daniel Jones was better. Trying to find some positives here, but ultimately when you have 4 defensive turnovers, you need to turn those into points, right? That was a massive glaring point for me. That's a huge negative. So if you've listened to the first part of the video and you're commenting on YouTube right now and didn't listen to this part, here's me saying this offense is still not good. Their offensive line is still garbage. Daniel Jones still was hesitant at sometimes, but I will say it looked better. The flow was a little bit better. I want to see them build from here. The problem with Jason Garrett's unit is they never build. They never built anything. It just stalled. He went backwards. He went forward 2 steps, backward 5 steps, and it was just so inconsistent all the time. Build a foundation, start to get some momentum in the coming weeks, start to get some consistency with Kenny Golladay going downfield and John Ross and Evan Ingram and these guys. That's really what it's all about, and get Andrew Thomas in there and hopefully holding it down at left tackle healthy. And I really would love to see them use Saquon Barkley and Devontae Booker in a little bit more unique ways. I think Devontae Booker's a better downhill runner straight up. Saquon Barkley is just so, he's a home run hitter, right? So you're going to get like 10 runs where he gets 2 yards or negative yards, and you're going to get 1 run where he gets 70 yards. And that's where his whole like the chunk is going to get his yards per carry is going to be elevated by that one long run. So I'd like to see them do a little bit of ground and pound with Devontae Booker specifically, run behind Andrew Thomas, get Matt Peart at right tackle and run behind Matt Peart. He is so freaking big, so strong. He's arguably our best run blocker. I don't get it. Nate Solder still sucks. Still get the hell that guy got the hell out of right tackle. It pisses me off. Every day I think about it and it still pisses me off. And I don't know who's making this decision, but it's freaking infuriating to me. But guys, I hope you enjoy this episode. Taking a look at the offense, taking a look at Dave Gettleman, his immediate future with the team. Make sure to subscribe below on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants video.